Hello, storytellers. I am sunburned. I just came back from Laguna Beach, and then of course I tore my nose skin because I wear those nose snores at night, and so that's my face. Okay, so I want to talk about Solomon Kane and paganism. Solomon Kane is what I finished over the weekend on the beach, and boy, and Robert E. Howard's story, and I've read it before, but his suicide and what led up to it and stuff, very sad. Real, and it's in here, it's in the back, and it's really, man, this I just felt for his father though, because his father loses his mother and Howard on the same day, literally. Man, I mean, I wonder what his life was like after that. He lost his whole family, and just the tragedy of Robert Howard and the decline, the horrible long health decline of his mother. So, rough stuff. Solomon Kane, just incredible. I was very surprised about this. I've never read this before, and I'm very surprised at the at what it had in it. It was primary. He only had, like, out of all the tales, only one or two I think are in England, and the rest is all in Africa. In sort of an exotic Africa that Robert E. Howard imagined of that place, and I was very intrigued. There's a lot of in today's woke culture. This should be banned. I don't know why Robert E. Howard's not canceled, but I just loved it and loved the stories, and there is a sort of redemptiveness about it, and his desire to be godly and go and pursue works and vengeance for God. Here's the thing I want to say about Robert E. Howard, and then about this character too, about Christian or Christian faith. I could tell, and it was very sad. There was no apologetics in the 1930s, and evolution controlled the day, controlled the narrative. And I've studied, in Christian Science. I studied this, and I want to say that about Christians too. Had a really rough time when evolution was invented. In the 18th century, so around 17, I think it started around, maybe it was in the 1800s, but I think the late 1700s, 1800s, anyway. And they were coming up with more and more, longer times, millions of years, 100,000 years, and all this stuff. And it was, and everyone, and now let me just fast forward to the 80s to represent what happened in the 30s. In the 80s, we all believed evolution. We all believed the scientists were telling the truth. We didn't think they could lie about science. Science was still in its infancy, in the sense of, like, we revered it as absolutes. Today, we know that's absolutely not true. We know that they're lying in their peer reviews. The peer review doesn't work anymore because no one's enforcing it. They're lying about their science. They're doing pseudoscience. They're doing pagan science. They're pushing fake stuff as if it was facts. Global warming, global cooling went to global warming, now to climate change, which means you can't disprove it anyway, because whatever we say is climate change. Climate change is hot, cold, nothing, something, little bit, everything, temperature rising, temperature lowering. That is ridiculous. That is not science. And evolution has done the same thing. Some things evolve, some things don't evolve, some things are in stasis. You can't prove anything without you have to have a negative and a positive. And if 1,000 scientists say that this evolution happened, but one said, nope, this proves it doesn't, it's out. It's not a democracy. If one thing disproves it, it is not a good theory. And evolution as a theory keeps evolving. Like it's never a specific thing. It's supposed to be a specific thing that you can prove or disprove. And and evolution just keeps changing. They keep changing the definition. Oh, this is not working now. So, well, let's keep calling it evolution to keep bull malarking people. So the issue here is that we as Christians thought that they couldn't lie. And I'm reading that in Robert E. And I'm reading it in this because I could tell through some of the stuff he's brought in, millions of years and the evolution and all that. And it's very sad because I can see he's struggling with that, and even in the writing, I can see that even in the Solomon Kane character is not sure of the faith that he has. He doesn't actually read the Bible, apparently, this Puritan, but Puritans were the ones that actually studied the Bible. Rarely did anyone else, the Catholics, the Anglicans, the Orthodox and stuff, the people didn't actually really study the Bible. Today, I think hopefully it's better, but I don't know. When I was a Catholic, I never read or studied the Bible. It wasn't until I became a Protestant that the church really focuses that you read the Bible for yourself. Anyway, so I could tell that in this guy's writing, in Howard's writing, and then in the stories where he brings up evolution as the answer to all these sort of mystical, ancient things that have been discovered. And it's very sad. It's very sad because many Christians I know were gut-wrenched about evolution and how they thought it was absolute, science. They thought it was science and telling the truth, and it wasn't. They lied. They lied, and they used corruption, and they used they lied about their evidence. They lied about Lucy and all these different animals, or ape to man fossils that they found, and we just didn't think they would lie like that because it's science. Sadly, we put science above God's word, and today, God's word is still solid. The science is falling apart and is ridiculous, and the evolution is ridiculous. And I'm here to just tell you that right now. And sadly, though, for many generations, Christians were gut-wrenched by it because we thought they couldn't lie. Well, thankfully now the Christian science is exploding, and there are a ton of scientists now. We're gathering forces and going up against this pathetic lie of the evolution and global climate change crap. So thankfully we have access to information, and if you're a Christian struggling with this, man, you really just jump deep dive into creation science. It's wonderful. It's a joyful journey of hilarity and fun and truth and just admiring science even more. When you do it with truth. Okay, but I want to talk now about the African stories in here of him being in Africa, and they're brutal and gory and violent and subjugating and horrific, and it's all blacks on blacks, blacks on browns, whatever. And that, this is obviously fantasy, but I'm gonna bring it around to truth. So this brutality and stuff in the stories is just amazing, and I just loved it because that's just what I'm into. But I'm into the apocalyptos type stuff, and then he's going through there trying to do good deeds, and I was really enthralled by this. I've been planning on doing my next setting after I finish a couple more for the Dark Ages, Christians of Space. Once I finish some more of that, which I'm trying to work on right now, I plan on doing an amazing setting on the African slave coast. Huge story that no one wants to talk about. The pagans don't want to bring it up. And the woke and the left don't want to bring it up. And I'm going to do it as a game setting, and it's going to be freaking exciting. But I want to show you then, I'm going to go over paganism, Christianity. Let me say this real quick. Christianity, the worst crimes of Christianity are the Crusades, they say, and the Inquisition and the witch trials. All of those were right, though. All of those were justified, and all of them were true to what they did. And you, as a Christian, Protestant, Anglican, or Catholic, should not be ashamed. Fight for the right of Christians who fought to change the world and make it a better place. The Crusades did that, the Inquisition did that, and the witch trials did that, and the church history did that across Europe, okay? Because Europe was the last Christendom, because of Islam and the Moors going up to Spain, and Islam throughout Africa and the Middle East destroyed and wiped out all the Christians there, and they subjugated all the Jews. And you can see what's happening now. So do not be ashamed of the Inquisition, the Crusades, the Templars. I'm pissed off at the culture and the entertainment. The reason, okay, here's another thing. It is so much safer for Assassin's Creed to attack Christianity than it is to attack Muslims or show Muslims as being the bad guy. The producers or that company that makes Assassin's Creed, if they did Muslims as the bad guy, what do you think would happen to their company, to their employees? Gee, I wonder. By them attacking Templars and Christianity and Catholic Church, what's going to happen to them? Nothing, because we Christians know the truth. And when people lie about us, we don't have to go and jihad them. We know who's going to take care of that. We know exactly who's going to take care of that. we don't have to actually go and hurt and kill and terrorize people, because we know what's going to happen to them. You know, we don't have to do it ourselves, and that's the peace and joy of Christianity in this world. We don't bring out terror. We bring out justice. We bring out trials. We bring out, stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Stop killing and sacrificing humans. Please stop doing that. Okay, you're not going to stop doing that, so we're going to have to go hammer. We're going to have to put the hammer on you. We Christians do that, but what we don't do is mob violence or terror or jihad because you believe in something different than us, as far as like worshiping. And insulting us is like whatever. Okay, fine, go ahead. But what we don't do is destroy people and their freedoms. So let me go through some stuff here about. So I just mentioned the worst things that Christians did, Inquisition, and they know that was. And by the way, the very word Inquisition means inquire. Okay, and I'm going to say Inquisition. It had started because of the Reconquista. The Spanish Catholic Church said people knew what the Muslims did. They knew the terror. They knew that the backstabbing they did. They knew their warfare was very brilliant because it was always about betrayal and traitors, getting traitors to betray and destroy, open gates at night and let the Muslim raiders in. So the Catholics knew the betrayal and terror and jihad of Islam, and so they used They were using mob violence to get rid of the Muslims during the Reconquista. The Catholic Church said, "Okay, we got to stop killing everybody." And we got to investigate it and get rid of the Muslims in a trial way, in an inquisition way, an inquiring way, and not just go out and kill people who are accused of being Muslims. And so that's what happened. And the amount of people that died from it were very few, like in the thousands over 300 years. And it was a trial, so you actually had an option to leave, or stay. And guess what? The Inquisition, the power they had was over people who said they were Christian but probably weren't. That's who they had the power over. They did not just go in and kill everybody. It was all about the Christian faith. Are you really a Christian? Are you here because you really are Christian? Or are you here to deceive and open the gate at night and let the Muslims attack us? That's what the Inquisition was about. Did it get out of hand? Probably, maybe, but the intent was to civilize the sort of the secret, counter police of terrorism. It was counter-terrorist police. That's what it was. Okay, so the Crusades, we already know Islam has armies. The Catholic Church never had an army, by the way. In that sense of like, it's part of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church does not have Christianity does not have a standing army. I'm sure they had, temporary armies because of things that were happening. But Christianity does not have a standing army, whereas Islam it has a standing army 24/7, 365. Remember, Islam is a theocracy. It's a part of the government, whereas Christianity, no, we want a separate government, a civil government. Islam conquered all of the Middle East and Northern Africa, which were all Christian, by the way. Christianity had spread before that, and so Europe was the last third of it, and that was even being attacked. Remember, Islam went up through Spain and all the way to Paris. Okay, so that's what that happened, and Crusades didn't even start until we didn't even fight them at that point necessarily. It was because many pilgrims were going to Jerusalem, and they were subjugated, being attacked and raided by the Muslims. Assassin's Creed will never put that in their games. And then the Templars said, "Oh, we need to protect our pilgrims." And then that's when it grew into a crusade at some point. So was the Crusades a failure? Absolutely not. I don't even, third, fourth, I don't care. It stopped Islam from taking over the last of Christendom. The witch trials, well, look at today. It appears the witch trials were right. Look at today. They're grooming the perversity and sexualizing of children, the butchery of children, the sacrificing of the unborn is now part of our government. And here we are not professing Jesus Christ in our role-playing games because we don't want to offend anyone. And that's my point about what I'm doing. So I'm going to go over paganism. I got that stupid comment. Christians didn't have to confront. I'm reading over here. It's from the YouTube, one of the YouTube videos. Christians didn't have to confront paganism. They attacked it. If you're going to weave history into your role-playing systems and games, at least set the record straight that Christians and Christianity has accounted for the most atrocities in human history, which is what a pagan would say. And paganism is wrought throughout the RPG culture and is pushing this stupidity while we Christians are being silent and to go along to get along. And I'm done with that. I want to be a nice guy, but that is the prevalent attitude of paganism across America, and it is ridiculous. It is so, well, of course they can lie. They don't have a rule that says they can't lie. They can bear false witness. They can slander and destroy. That's why you see that all the time with the Democrats and what they constantly do. Women's health care. That's their way. That's their way of hiding the murder of babies and then blaming the Republicans for not giving women health care. That is the extent of the deception that pagans can have. They can lie about the baby being murdered, right to your face. They can just say, women's health care, women's health care, women's health care. They can do that. Why? Because they don't have God. They don't have Jesus Christ, and they don't have the Holy Spirit. It's women's health care, women's health care. Murdering babies is women's health care. Women's health care is perfect because it blames the good for trying to stop the murdering of babies. And yes, I'm telling you that right now, and you know I'm lying. I know you know I'm lying, but I'm just going to keep lying. Calvinism is absolutely real. Women's health care is a perfect example of Calvinism being real. And Calvinism meaning God made some of us to be saved and God made some of us to be wicked. Because how else can you explain this? I know you know I'm lying about the sacrifice of babies, but I'm going to call it women's health care. How can you, like a reasonable, free will person, think like that? Believe that? Know what they're saying? You know? I mean, it's sad, but it's... All right, let me go to this. Thankfully, it's still on Wikipedia. What do you know? I really appreciate that. But here's a list of the types of sacrifices done by the Aztecs. And remember, they did festivals where for 4 days where they sacrificed 20,000 a day, 80,000 over a long weekend of human beings. 80,000 right there is more than, and this is just for a festival. That is more than the Inquisition by, I think, 5 times in 300 years doing an inquisition, doing a trial, with inquisitors who inquiring about whether you're Christian or not, and if you're not, you should leave. And if you don't leave, we may have to send you to the authorities to be executed. Because we don't believe you're telling the truth, and we think you're dangerous for our city. Pagans, this is 28. I think this is more than the Crusades total, too. And remember, the Crusades was a war. It wasn't enslaving and sacrificing humans. It was an open declaration of war against Islam and its terror and killing of people. This has nothing to do with that. Pagans don't actually believe in war. Remember that. Pagans don't believe in war. Democrats don't believe in war. They call Republicans warmongers. And when they say you're a warmonger, say, yes, I am. I believe in war. Because war answers this. War answers slavery, genocide, terror. War is a declaration of stop it or we're going to fight back. That's why they always attack war. They never attack terrorism. They never attack slavery or genocide, right? They always attack war. And I'm going to get to slavery as well. So here, I'm going to go through this because this is brutal. Here's a type of sacrifice. Sacrifice of children and captives to the water deities. And remember, all of their sacrifices are entertaining sacrifices. They watch them die slowly, horribly. Sacrifice of captives. Gladiatorial fighters. Dances of the priest wearing the skin of the flayed victims. I'm not going to go through all these, but this is... They entertain themselves with the butchery of human beings, and of human beings that are weak, that are naked, that are not fighting, not in a war, but in a naked in shackles and in fear and horror. They want to see the horror, pain, and suffering. That is paganism. That is the return of paganism is coming, and we already see it in the surgeries and in these people doing this today. Here's another type of sacrifice: extraction of the heart, bearing of the flayed human skins, sacrifices of children, sacrifice of a maid, of a boy and a girl, sacrifice of captives by extraction of the heart, sacrifice by drowning and extraction of the heart, sacrifice by extraction of the heart, sacrifice by decapitation of a woman and an extraction of her heart, sacrifice by starvation in a cave or temple. Wow. Slow. They probably watch them. Sacrifice to the fire gods by burning the victims. Sacrifice of a decapitated young woman. She was skinned, and a young man wore her skin. Sacrifices of captives by hurling from a height and extraction of the heart. Well, sacrifices of children, 2 noble women, extraction of the heart and flaying, ritual cannibalism. Sacrifice by bludgeoning, decapitation, extraction of the heart. Massive sacrifices of captives and slaves by extraction of the heart. Sacrifices of children and slaves by decapitation. Sacrifice of women by extraction of the heart and decapitation afterwards. Sacrifice of victims representing little and their women each 4 years, and captives hour, night, new fire. Look at these images. Horrific stuff. And for us to go along to get along with paganism. Look at the movies today. I mean, look at the movies today and what they're depicting. They're depicting gore and flaying of the skin as a normal thing now. It's a normal, fun, entertaining thing. The amount of gore and violence that is being showed in films today. Okay, let's get through this. Another thing that's been bothering me a lot is medieval torture devices. And it finally came up in a YouTube video by a historian, and and now you can find it if you look for it. But medieval devices are not medieval. So when we see all these medieval torture museums, they're actually lies. They're made up because, well, that's entertaining and that draws people. But true medieval torture was not any of this stuff. I mean, true medieval torture, based on what they can tell, was basic stuff like ropes and tying them up and mundane small village things where they're, and most of it was about public humiliation because they did something really bad, like a crime. Like I think the one I read in here was that 2 bakers were making fake bread to sell it, or bad bread, and so they tied them up to a wooden post and then they burned the fake bread under them. But it was just a smoke thing. It wasn't like it killed them or anything. They were barely hurt, but it was a public humiliation and probably smoke, too much smoke inhalation. But they didn't die, and they did it to show that these were criminals. But then that was it. They couldn't be beggars again. And the Iron Maiden does not exist in medieval times. In the 17th and 18th century, there was a competition for entertainment, right? And much of it was morbid. And so people started making up all these morbid things to draw people to their freak shows. And what they're discovering is that most of this stupid stuff was created, like these scary looking devices were created in the 17th, 18th century for entertainment purposes to draw people in. And they realized this thing couldn't even work in a human body to torture them. So that to me is another thing that, like, a lot of people tie in with the church, that the church was torturers, and in shows and stuff, and like the papal, priests and papal had torture devices. No, they did not. First off, in the Inquisition across medieval Europe, the priests inquired about witches and about all that, but they never did the executions. If they could not get this crazed woman to stop sacrificing babies, murdering babies, whatever she was doing, if they knew they couldn't get her to stop and she was crazy and continually, they would test her, and because you had to question them, they always lied. If they knew that she was just beyond redemption, and by the way, they could ask for redemption, ask for forgiveness. But if they couldn't, they would send it to the local authorities, and the local authorities would inevitably, the vast majority hung them, because it was quick and got rid of them. Hung them because they just, what are they going to do with them? What local? This woman wants to keep sacrificing babies. Okay, we should be tolerant of that. No. So let me move on to the African. Let me skip to this one. So Dominion is this book I'm reading, and I haven't finished it. It's very long, but really interesting. And he says in there that the pagan temples failed not because Christians, ransacked and violently attacked them. He said it is now the dominant understanding that the pagan temples decayed out of failure and misuse, and nobody went to them anymore, because there's a letter and he quotes it in there, or paraphrase, whatever, that a Caesar or a general came through a town and said he saw the dilapidation of the decay of the pagan temples because everyone was becoming Christian, and because Christianity offered charity, family. People saw in the church, in the spreading of the church, that people were helping each other, and that the priests were not sexualizing their daughters and their sons. And he saw the general, or I think it was a Caesar, saw how ridiculous it was, and he was ex-Christian. He actually went back to paganism. So he made a law telling by the way, the priests of the pagan temples were transvestites. He saw that they hung out at the bars, got drunk, and dressed as women, and were sexualized. And so he made a law saying they had to be charity. They had to be charity and had to help people. That, of course, that's freaking never, that didn't last. And so the temples were in decay and failing. And the people fled the stupid pagan stuff because they saw how horrible it is. This is, and also, if you look at India today, and then ever since the British left, the Indians, the Hindus find Christianity such a threat. Why? Because the Christian churches take the outcasts. Hinduism has a caste system, and the outcasts are at the bottom, and they are slaves, and they are being taught, brainwashed to believe they are less than a cockroach or whatever, and they're slaves, and they should do their duties for the upper caste. And Christianity says no, you don't have, you're free from that. When Christianity comes into an area, they ruin the slavery of that area, of the pagan slavery that is commonplace. Same across when Christianity spread across Europe, it was a danger to the pagans because it ruined their slavery. The Christians would buy up slaves and then set them free. That was unheard of, ridiculous, and the slaves saw that, and the pagans saw that, and it was a threat to them. So if there was any violence, the violence is that Christianity came up against evil, and evil didn't like it. And guess what? All right, let me go to this, which is really annoying. I looked up African slave trade. So I looked up African slave trade, right? And look at the first thing the AI does. Transatlantic slave trade. What? That's not what I looked up. African slave trade. The African slave trade was huge in Africa. Blacks and browns, Arabs and Africans. And it had been going on since 2000 BC, I guess. 2000 BC to 2000 AD today, there's still slavery in Africa. And it's not because of the whites. Not because of the whites. And here's an annoying thing. This transatlantic slave trade, they claim, starts at 1526, approximately. That's BS. There was a few slaves taken from Africa to Portugal because they were slaves. The entire African place was slavery. That's all it was. War chiefs, warrior slaves, other slaves, and subjugated slaves, and kidnapped slaves, and butchered slaves, and sacrificial slaves. That's all it had. So when the Portuguese took some Africans out of there, they were slaves. They didn't know what else to do with them. They took them to Portugal, and they found that they loved Portugal. So Portuguese were like, oh, these are really good. They're really helpful. They're they're slaves. They're doing their job. They're at peace here. And so they started getting more of them because it became popular. Not because the Portuguese wanted slaves, but they thought they were saving them from the horrors of Africa. Okay, so then it exploded because of the Atlantic slave trade needed agriculture. They were finding all this, whatever. Yes, it got bad. It got corrupt. It got greedy. It got horrific. I agree. But it lasted for about 300 years, and that was it. The white man's slavery lasted 300 years, and then the white man realized how horrible this was. But what about the Africans and the Arabs? How long did it last? Why didn't they end it? Why didn't they end it in 1700 BC, 300 years after it started in 2000 BC? Why didn't they end it then? Why didn't they end it at 700 BC? Why didn't they end it at 700 AD or 1200 AD? Why didn't the Arabs end it then? Because they're so good in the religion of peace. They didn't end it because they believe in slavery. Paganism is all about the defilement of a human spirit, the human soul, and the human being. And we want to get along with it in our games. And you know what? In the role-playing games, they're taking out all this because it's too offensive, right? They're like trying to hide that. Like in Pirate Borg, which I really kind of enjoy, and it's really good influence on how I want to work some things. But they took out slavery because, they don't want to offend anyone. And that's what all these RPGs are doing. They're taking out all of this stuff that really happened because they don't want to offend anyone. And now they hate Christianity. Christianity is the worst thing ever. Those stupid guys talking about Christianity is the worst thing ever. But they're hiding the slavery of paganism for thousands of years. The white Christians did it for less than 300, and it was always fought and argued that it was not right. And finally it ended, and it ended in brutal wars with whites on whites, brutal wars to end slavery. The blacks and the browns never ended slavery. The whites ended it, forced the browns and the blacks to end their slavery too. But now today it's coming back because the whites and the Christians are being guilt tripped into not doing anything, as the blacks and the browns are bringing back slavery across Africa and across the Middle East. Because we don't want to be white colonizers. We got stupid people here in America, pagans, that are Grimer worm tongues. They're Grimer worm tongues, lulling us and stupefying us as the evil rises. The pagans in America are Grimer worm tongues. I gotta get a phrase like that going. They're deceiving us and stupefying us and making us completely idiotic and stupid and unable to do what we should be doing. Evangelizing and planting churches. We should be evangelizing and planting churches. What are you doing for the Lord? I don't care about how much you love Jesus. I don't care about how much you're praying to Jesus. I don't care. Don't care, because I don't really believe you. I don't really believe you as a Christian. Even as a Christian brother, I don't believe you. What I want to know is, what are you doing for the Lord? Don't care how much you love Jesus. What are you doing for the Lord? That's what I'm curious about. Are you the doorman at church? Perfect. That's great. I think you're a Christian for sure. You're there every morning, attending the door, handing out the little pamphlets or the door, thing that you're supporting the church. That to me tells you you're a Christian. Now, that's fine. That's simple. It's silly. Well, it's not silly. It's important. But I want to know what you're doing for the Lord. That's it. I don't need to know your prayers. I mean, I believe in prayer. I believe in learning about Jesus and studying and all that. But I don't. What are you doing for the Lord? All right, a couple more, or actually one more. So, yeah, slavery in Africa. So, the slavery in Africa, and look, all this picture is all about the trading. But they're not talking about. Thankfully they got a couple of routes here. But this whole big red thing here is bull crap. Let me show it. So this whole thing here, like 1 million bull. This was like 100 million. This is like 100 million. Number of slaves transported. You know what? So this right here was well documented because the whites or the Christians or whatever, Portuguese, they actually documented their the amount of their boats, their shipments, their the taxes, all that, right? It's all very well documented. This right here, there's no documentation because they didn't document it. They just took them. Untold 100 million. Like this is like a million or something. Maybe under 10 million. Something I don't remember the number, but something like that. It's a fraction though of what was taken through here. From Africa into the Middle East, and guess what? In the Middle East today, there's no blacks. Like there's barely any blacks because they were all castrated, murdered, killed but when their slavery was over. Brutally, like, you know. And this is 100 million. So this is a lie. It's misleading, type of, you know, and it's pervasive. We have, you know, decent documentation of slavery coming to the West, but the horrid, huge amount that went into the East, into the Middle East, is ignored. So we got a lot to work on, Christians. We got a lot to work on. Deception and lying that never seems to take a break. The pettiness of evil is more powerful. You know, do not underestimate the pettiness of evil. So, I hope you will do something for the Lord, whatever that is. If you're an RPG person, please come check this out. I'm trying to create a game where we profess Christ in it and have a good time, have fun, make adventures, make entertaining stories. I hope that this game will help influence you to create your own stories, your own game, your own settings, but more importantly, your own stories, writing stories, cartoons, TV shows, whatever. Make you realize that evangelism and church planting are the utmost form of adventure and entertainment and purpose, you know, that we have. So I also have a Kickstarter. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I always forget, and very few watch to the end, but oh well, or listen to the end. But I have a Kickstarter running right now. It's a few days left. I'm trying desperately to get it out, the word out. Not desperately, I'm trying, but I don't know how. And of course, on the first 10 days of it, for some reason, it lost a lot of its. The rewards were blocked out. And when I contacted Kickstarter about it, they said, "Oh, some glitch." So I decided just to continue with it. Anyway, that's what's happening on my end. Trying to get things done here. Trying to just keep going. Just doing something for the Lord. I am enjoying it, though. I'm enjoying it. I'm doing something for the Lord, and I'm very happy. Okay, that's it for now. Whew, that was a long, tough one, but a important one. So I do recommend Solomon Kane, man. I recommend reading this. Pretty amazing stuff. It's man, the whole Robert E. Howard thing, and just reading through this, just, yeah, and I can tell his struggle with the faith because of evolution and because of the lies that everyone was told about it, and that the Bible was wrong. Factually, they said their science was absolutely fact, and the Bible is wrong. Thusly, your faith is wrong. Christianity is wrong. Is lie. They did that. They lied about it, and it's very sad. I can feel it in his writing. Anyway, the game of life. Okay. The game of life. You gotta roll holy dice. You gotta roll holy dice. Don't roll their dice. Don't roll stupid dice. Roll holy dice. And it's fun. It is awesome. I'm having a blast with it. So check out my channel. Subscribe. Check out the actual plays. You know, I don't edit them. I don't polish them up. But I just enjoy it. All right. And the game of life. Roll holy dice.